So this is Jessica Holman,
Hi.
my mentor teacher this semester, and I will be interviewing her. Okay, here's the first question.
Okay.
How well prepared do you feel to teach students with disabilities and other special learning needs?
Well, at the beginning, it was a struggle. I'm alternative certification, so the training I got was basically on the fly. I got a few classes in the summer beforehand, and then instead of student teaching, I just got thrown straight into it. There were some benefits for me. I have ADHD myself, so I at least knew a little bit about that.
Right.
And I did start with a few really good co-teachers and SF teachers who kind of helped me with that. But yeah, at first it was a struggle. By this year, I feel really confident. I've had lots of training, and I've really kind of developed ways of working with a variety of disabilities so that I feel really far more confident than I did when I started teaching.
Awesome. Did you complete a traditional program or alternative certification?
Alternative certification.
Yes. What is your role and responsibility in teaching students with disabilities?
The way I look at it is I'm there to help them figure out how to deal with their own disability in a way that they can move on without me. If they can't function without me, eventually, then I'm not doing my job right. And so, I don't want to make it so that they're so reliant on me that they're afraid to try anything on their own. I just want to be a facilitator so that if they need a little bit of a push or a way to rearrange it so that it works for them, we can do that. But not that I need to be there every second to help them through the process.
That's awesome. In your opinion, what are the characteristics of effective inclusion instruction?
First of all, I think the class size should be small enough that you can individually work with some students. In an extremely large class, the inclusion kids are the first ones that suffer because you're so busy dealing with so many other students that even though you're working to try to get them their accommodations and you're doing it, you're still only capable of the bare minimum. And so a smaller class, a well-trained teacher, one that really understands both the disability itself and what are some effective methods of helping with the student, but also classroom-wide strategies. So, for example, mnemonic devices are good for everyone. There's no reason not to teach those to the entire class because nobody's going to be like, I'm sorry, but I don't need that extra help, And if they don't, they can just ignore it, Same with certain accommodations like having organizational strategies and things like that. So nobody's going to be hurt by learning how to write down an organizational planner and figure things out. And then finally, really developing a relationship with those students. Because if they are too afraid to ask for help, you sometimes don't know the issues that are happening with them. And so you really need to have a good relationship with them.
Sweet. Describe the frequency and methods of collaboration between you, the special education. Let me repeat that. Describe the frequency and methods of collaboration between you, the special education teachers, working with your students with disabilities. Did that make sense?
I think there's supposed to be an and
With
between you and
the special education teachers working with your students.
That's okay. I figured out what you meant.
Good. Because I couldn't process it.
Well, right now I have only the one special education class. I did have two at the beginning of the year, but I had a student that was graduated past it, so that's great. So the one class I have with Miss Perkins, and she and I get along really well, so that really, really helps. And we work to kind of design things together. She helps me organize everything. while I'm still, I have to know who all of my special education students are and what their mods and accommodations are. She does help me keep it organized and put together because she knows a lot of those kids on a more personal basis because she sees them in multiple classes.
Right.
Whereas, this is my first year I've ever seen them or talked to them or know anything about them.
Right.
And so she's really helpful in helping me like, hey, this particular student needs you to remind them pretty regularly, whereas this student has this as an accommodation and it's useful, but it doesn't necessarily need to be constant. And so she's very good at that. She's also very great at making sure she understands my content well enough to be able to help the students. And we work more as a co-teach team than as an SF team because she doesn't have another first period class. So even though she's only required to be in there 3 times a week, she's usually there almost every day. And so we will plan assignments together. Like the project we're doing right now, she actually brought in and planned, and then I helped work to implement it. And so,
cool.
Yeah, it's really nice when you get a co-teach SF person that's like that.
That's awesome. In what ways are you providing effective instruction for students with disabilities?
One of the many things I do is the interactive notebook. A lot of things that my kids with disabilities struggle with is organization and also keeping up with materials. And so for my kids that I feel like are going to lose their notebooks or anything like that, I have a place they can keep that in my classroom. And then the notebook is there for them to keep up with, and also allows me to do just kind of mini checks for their understanding. The assignments that I have that are just worth a stamp, they don't count against their grade very much. So, if they're struggling with it or whatever, it's not going to kill them. And the stamp basically is, hey, you did this. But I can quickly check for understanding and address issues that they had right then, rather than waiting for me to have to be able to go home and grade assignments for everybody to be able to give them feedback. And so that's really helpful. Keeping up with their mods and accommodation. Most of the kids that I have this year are actually pretty high level, and they have very few things that they need changed. But just kind of making sure I check with them for understanding, making sure that we do both class-wide and small group instruction to make sure that they, in particular, are understanding things.
Cool. What is your biggest challenge in working with students with disabilities?
The biggest challenge is making sure that I'm not overly punishing them for behavior problems that may not be in their control. A lot of students, particularly with ADHD or hyperactivity disorders, or even students with just some sort of mental deficiency that they really struggle with something. They can get frustrated, and then that becomes a behavior issue rather than just a work issue. And so you want to make sure that you're not punishing them for something that they can't actually control. And I've worked with that by, I have small fidget devices that don't make noise and are also not so distracting that becomes more interesting than what we're doing. So I have a fidget cube, I have Play-Doh, just small things that help keep their mind off stuff. And I try to find their cues that they're getting frustrated. Because everybody has some sort of cue that like, hey, this is getting to be too much. But unfortunately, nobody's is the same. So you kind of have to learn that students like, all right, this kid gets really quiet when they're about to get frustrated. This kid starts, doing anything but the work. This kid talks a lot, stuff to try to figure out, okay, they're getting frustrated. And I implement the break policy. So, I'll come up to them, and if they feel like they're getting frustrated, I say, okay, do you need 5 minutes to just kind of regroup? Because even I can't just keep throwing myself at a problem without being like, all right, I'm done with life. So, I try to understand them as well as I understand myself. Sometimes we expect more of our students than we expect of ourselves as humans. And I'm like, if I can't do that, why would they be able to
Right.
do that? My brain's fully formed,
Right.
you know.
Right. That's a really good way to look at it.
So,
Cool. What recommendations do you have to help me prepare to teach students with disabilities and other special learning needs?
the thing that has helped me the most is actually learning about the most common disabilities and how their brains are thinking. So, I have ADHD and attentive, which means I understand the kids that are zoning out. I don't understand the hyperactive kids on an intuitive level. Like, I would love to have that much energy. It's never going to happen. So, look at, specific types of learning disabilities and how you can work with them and what exactly you can do to help them.
Okay.
So,
Sweet.
yeah.
Cool. And that was the last question.
Yay!
So, woohoo.
Bye!
Bye.